Hey, what's going on, guys? In this video we're going to create a simple REST API using the Go programming language, and this is also going to be kind of an intro to the language and how to get things set up. Now, I know a majority of my subscribers are JavaScript developers, PHP developers, Python, and so on, but if you're looking to learn a new language, Go may be a really good idea. I've been studying it for a while and I really do like it. I'm actually thinking of doing a course on it. It's very powerful for things like network and web applications. It's incredibly scalable since it's a new language. It was basically created to run on newer hardware. It has really rich support for concurrency. It's just a good choice if you're looking to learn a new language. Alright, so with that said, even if you've never written a line of Golang, if you understand the principles of how RESTful APIs work, then you'll be able to follow along with this just fine. And like I said, I'll also explain some of the language syntax and things like that as we move along. Now, since this is an introductory level tutorial, we're not going to implement a database. We will be using hard-coded mock data, but it will be a full CRUD API. We'll be able to create, read, update, and delete books, and we're going to use Postman to make our requests to the API. Alright, so the point of this video is really to show you how to set up a Golang project, how it works, look at some basic syntax, and show you how it works with HTTP so we can create a REST API. Alright, so with that said, let's go ahead and get started. This video is sponsored by GPD Host. They offer a variety of affordable hosting plans with flexible billing cycles. These plans include a free SSL certificate, a free domain name, website builder, and many other services, including free website migration with no downtime. To find out more, visit gpdhost.com or click the link in the description below. Alright, so I already have Go installed. It's very easy to install no matter what you're on, Windows, Mac, or Linux. Just go to golang.org, click download Go, and just go ahead and follow the instructions for whatever OS you're using. Windows, it's just a simple installer, which I've already done. I've already gone through. Alright, I'll also be using Visual Studio Code as my text editor, which also has a really nice Go extension and some Go packages to help your development. Since I'm using Windows, I'm using Git Bash as my terminal because I don't like the standard Windows command line. And we'll also be using a third-party router called Mux, which is very popular for the Go language. And to install it, we just simply run this go get command. Alright, so those are basically the tools that we'll be using. So I'm going to go ahead and just open up my terminal. Like I said, I'm using Git Bash, so I'm going to open that up. I'm going to run it as an administrator. And we want to create a project in our Go path. Okay, so your Go path by default is going to be in your users / your username / Go directory. And I just want to pull up a page real quick in the docs. If we go to documents and we go to how to write Go code, this shows you how to structure like your big applications. We're just going to basically have one file, but we want to create a directory in our Go path in source github.com / and then your username / and then your project. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do that. So let's say mkdir, so make directory -p, and then we're going to use our Go path variable, $go path /source / github.com / my username, which is Brad Traversy / and then I'm going to call the project REST API. REST API. Alright, so now I'm just going to use the Windows Explorer to show you real quick. If I go to my users folder, so C drive users Brad, and let's see, it's not there. I guess my Go path wasn't set. So to set my Go path, if you're on Windows, you can do export Go path equals and then $home / go. Okay, and that should set it. And I'm just going to run that command once again. All right, so now you can see there's a folder called Go. We have source, github.com, Brad Traversy, and REST API. So this is our project folder. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to open this with Visual Studio Code. Alright, now, like I said, you should definitely install the Go extension. So if I click on the extensions icon, you can see I already have it installed. It's the one by Luke Hoban. There's 2.1 million downloads. It's very popular, and it's very, very helpful as in terms of IntelliSense and just code hinting, stuff like that. So let's see, what we'll do here is create a new file, and we're going to call this main.go. Now once you do that, if you're in VS Code, you'll get this drop down about different packages to help you out. I'm going to go ahead and click install all, and that's going to install all of these different packages, which are just kind of like helpers to help you along with your development. Okay, and as far as my terminal, I'm using my integrated terminal. In VS Code, you can go to View Integrated Terminal, or you can just hit the Control backtick and you can toggle it that way. Alright, so we're ready to start writing Go. So I'm going to do just a little introduction first. So every main file, you want to define package main, and then we can import packages from there. Okay, so you can kind of think, I'm going to do a lot of comparison with JavaScript and Node.js. You can kind of think of this as importing Node packages. You have local packages like HTTP and path, and then you have remote packages. So we're going to import first just a package called FMT, which is the formatter. And this basically has a bunch of print commands so we can print to the console, because I just want to give you a simple example of running an app. Alright, so in addition to this, we need a function called main. Now in Go, when you define a function, you need to use the func keyword. So func main, and we don't have to call this explicitly like that, it just runs on its own. And in here, I'm just going to say formatter.println, and then we want to just put in double quotes. Okay, you want to use double quotes with Go, and we'll just say hello world, and we'll save that. Okay, so now to run this, to test this file out, we can go to the terminal and we can say go run, and then the name of the file, which is main.go, and you see we get hello world. Alright, now if I want to compile this and build this out, I can say go build, if I can spell it right. And now if you look up here, you'll see we have a REST API.exe file. Okay, so that simple command created an exe file from our program. And to run it, we can just say / and then the name of the file, which is REST API, and it runs our file. Alright, so that's what we'll be doing to actually run our server when we create it. Okay, so none of this really has anything to do with the REST API. I just wanted to give you a little introduction of how to set up a file. Alright, now we're not going to need the formatter. We're not going to use that. We can get rid of that and get rid of that line. But there are a bunch of other things we need to bring in. So we're working with JSON, so we want to bring in encoding/JSON, okay, which is basically a core package. We don't have to install it or anything. We're going to bring in log, which will log errors and stuff like that. We're going to bring in our net/HTTP package to work with HTTP, and that's what you use to create APIs and stuff. I'm also going to bring in a small package called math. Math is actually its own package, but I want to bring in rand, because when we create a book, okay, we're using books for our resource, I want to add the ID as a random number. So we're just going to use this to generate a random number. And then I also want to convert that to a string, so I'm going to bring in a package called strconv, so string converter. Alright, and then we also want to bring in a router called mux, which is a third-party router. I can't remember if I showed you that at the beginning. I think I did. But basically this is the GitHub page, and we can install it using this command here. So it's go get -u and then the GitHub page or the GitHub link. So I'm going to copy that, and we'll go down here and just paste that in. And then once that runs and installs, if I go to my Go path and go to source github.com, you can see we have a bunch of stuff here now, but if you look, we have Gorilla and then Mux. So that was installed in our Go path. So now we can bring that in by just saying github.com/gorilla/mux. Alright, so that's all of our imports. I figured we'd just get all of those out of the way. Alright, so now what we're going to do is go to our main function, and first thing we're going to do in here is init the router, the mux router. So we're going to create a variable. You can call it anything. I'm going to just call it R. You can call it router. And we're going to say colon equals mux dot new router. All right, now if you've never worked with Go before, this colon equals may look a little weird. And basically what this is doing, it's type inference, because Go is a statically typed language like Java, C#, TypeScript. If you've worked with Angular and TypeScript, then you've worked with types. But basically, if I were to create a variable called age, we could say var age, yes var, just like JavaScript, and then we would say that this is going to be an int, and then we'd set the value. Now, there's something called type inference where we could actually just do instead age colon equals and then the value, and then this is just going to look at this and see that this is an integer, and it's going to give it that type. So you'll see this quite a bit in Golang. Alright, so now that we have our router variable, what we're going to do is create our route handlers, which will establish our endpoints for our API. And we do this using the router and then a method called handleFunc. Alright, so in handleFunc, it's going to take in two things. Make sure you use double quotes. That's one thing that threw me off because I usually use single quotes in JavaScript. Also semicolons. You can use semicolons in Go, but most of the time you're not going to see them. They're automatically inserted after, when you run your code. But in here we want to put our route, so it's going to be /books. Actually, let's do /API/books. And then second parameter is going to be the function we want to run, which I'm going to say getBooks. Okay, and then we need to do .methods because it needs to know, which type of HTTP method to use, and we're going to use a get. So this will be a get request. All right, so let's go ahead and let's just copy this 5 times, I think. And this next one will also be a get, but it's going to call a function called getBook, and it's also going to have an ID. So we're going to do /ID, and that's going to get a single book. This next one will be to API books, and it's going to be a function called createBook, and this will be a post request. So I'm going to change this to post. All right, this will be the update, so this will be a put request, and the function name will be update book, and the endpoint is going to be books / and then we need the ID in there so it knows which one to update. All right, same thing with the delete. That's going to be books /ID. We're going to call a function called deleteBook, and then the method is going to be delete as well. All right, so now we have our endpoints and our route handlers. Now to run the server, we're going to do that in the main as well. Whoops. To run the server, we take our HTTP package and we have a method called listen and serve. So this is similar to app.listen in Node and Express. Okay, it's going to take in the port, so we'll say :8000, and then we also need to pass in the router, which we gave the variable of R. Okay, now in addition to this, I'm going to just wrap it in log.fatal. That way, if it fails, we throw an error. All right. Remember, we brought in that log package. That's what we're using that for. All right, and that will start the server. Now it'll throw an error now because we defined all these route handlers with functions, but we don't have the actual functions yet. Okay, but before we create the functions, we're going to actually set up our model. So we're going to go above the main, and we're going to create our structs. Okay, so book struct, and that's basically our model. Now a struct, that should have an R in it, a struct is kind of like a class. It's used for object-oriented programming in Golang. It can have properties and methods. It works very, very similar to an ES6 class or a Java or C# class. So to define a struct, we say type, name it, I'm going to call it book, and then struct, and then we're going to set our properties. So we're going to have an ID, and we're going to set that to a string. And then what we want to do is set our JSON. So we're going to put some backticks and say JSON colon and then ID in lowercase. So this will be the JSON field that we fetch. Okay, this is basically the property of the field or the struct, and then we have the JSON field. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is just copy this 4 times. We're going to have 4 of these, and then we're going to have an ISBN. Okay, these will all start with capitals. Just tab that over. And then inside the JSON, this will be lowercase ISBN. All right, and then this here will be the title of the book. And then we're going to change this to title. And then down here, this is going to actually be the author. So author. And then this is going to have its own struct, author. So we're going to do asterisk author. And change this to author. Okay, so let's create a separate struct for the author. And basically I'm just going to have a first name and last name, but you can add other stuff if you want. The author's company or whatever it may be. So let's say type author struct, and we're going to set, let's say, first name, which will be a string, and we'll say, we'll put in our backticks, JSON, lowercase first name. All right, and then we'll do the same thing for last name. So this will be last name, and that should be good. So that's basically our model. So now what we want to do is create these functions, all these get books, get book, and so on. So this one will get all books. So we're going to say func get books, like that. Now any route handler function has to take in a response and request. Just like in Node.js, we do app.get, and then we have whatever our route, and then we have a function that has request response. We're kind of doing that same kind of thing. So we're going to put in a variable of w here, and it's going to have a type, but it's going to be a special type from the HTTP package called response writer. All right, and then the second parameter will be r, and that's going to have a type of asterisk HTTP dot request. Okay, so that's kind of like our response and request. So every function that we create that is a route handler has to have these two properties, or these two parameters. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy that, and let's just create all these. I think there's 5 of them. All right, and then we'll just change them up. So let's see, this one here will be to get single book, and this is going to be get book instead of get books. This one will be to create a new book, so this one will be called create book. Create book. Can't spell today. And this one will be to update the book. So update book. And then this one will be to delete. So this will be delete book. Like that. All right, so I'm going to save this. And we shouldn't have any errors. Now, we can start the server. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to say go build. And then we're going to run /REST API. All right, and you see how it's just kind of staying there? That's because the server is running. And if I were to open up my browser, and go to localhost, localhost port 8000, we get 404 page not found because that's not a route. Remember, our routes are /API/books, and we get nothing, and that's fine because we have basically it's calling get books, which there's nothing there. All right, now we're going to add some mock data just to test things out. So we're going to go down to the main function. We're going to put this right under where we initialize the router. So we'll just say mock data, and we need, let's see, we're going to define a variable up top here under where we created our structs, and let's see, we'll put it right here, and we're going to say init books variable as a slice book struct. Okay, now a slice, if you've never worked with Go before, a slice is basically a variable length array, because arrays are you need to define the length. So you need to say this array is going to have 5 values or 3 values or whatever. A slice, however, is variable, so that's what we want to use. So we're going to create a variable called books. We're going to say it's of the book type or the book struct, but it's also a slice because it's going to be a collection of books. All right, so now we'll go down here to the main, and in the main we're going to set books, and we want to append to it, so we're going to use the append function, and I'm just going to put a to-do right here. We'll say to-do implement database, so we'll do that at some other point. So append to books, and we want a book. Okay, so this is basically the struct, kind of like a class, and we want ID of 1, should be a string, ISBN. So for that, I'm just going to make something up, and let's see what else. It gets a title. So for the title, I'm just going to say book 1. Just put a space here. Alright, so we have ID, ISBN, and title. Now we want the author. So author is going to be a little different. We're just going to say author because it's its own struct. And then what we want to do is set it to ampersand author. And in here, we're going to put another set of curly braces and then put our first name, which I'll say John, and then last name, we'll say Doe. This should actually be capital L. Alright, so when we're defining these, you want to use your property names, so the capitalized version. When we output the JSON, it'll be the lowercase version. So that is a single book. So what I'm going to do is just copy this, and we'll go ahead and just change some things here. So we'll change the ID to 2. Let's change the ISBN to just something. We'll call the title book 2. We'll change the author. We'll say Steve Smith. Okay, so now we have some mock data. So now what we're going to do is go up to, let me just save this, make sure we have no errors. Alright, so I'm going to go up to the get books, and this one's going to be really easy. We're just going to take JSON, and we're going to say new encoder, so JSON new encoder, and we want to pass in the response writer, so that's the variable of W, and then we want to do dot encode, and then we're going to pass in our books variable. Okay, now one other thing we're going to do right above it is we want to set the header value of content type to application/JSON, or else it's just going to get served as text, and we can do that by taking that W and calling header.set, and then inside here we can say we want to set the content type, and we want to set it to application/JSON. All right, and that's it. We should be able to fetch our books from what we have in here. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to open up Postman, which actually I don't have installed on this. I'm on a virtual machine, so I'm going to grab that real quick. We'll say Postman client. I'm going to go to getpostman.com, grab the standalone version for Windows 64, and download that. Sorry about that, guys. I thought I had this installed. Alright, so now that that's downloaded, we'll go ahead and install it. Okay, so I think I have an account, but I'm just going to go straight to the app and close this page out. And now let's make a request. Actually, you know what? Before we make the request, we need to rebuild it. So what I'm going to do is stop with Control C, stop the server, and I'm going to say, let's clear this out, and I'm going to do go build $ampersand and then /REST API. That way we can do both at once. We can rebuild it and we can run the server. Alright, so now let's go to Postman and let's do a GET request to HTTP localhost port 8000 /API/books, and let's send. And there we go. So now you can see up here we have a status 200, which is good. That's okay. And we have our data. So we have our ID1 book and our ID2. And you can see we have our author, which is embedded into that object with the first name and last name. So that works. Now we're going to move on to do the single book. So it would be this get book function, which is going to be a little different. We're going to still use this. We want to make sure it's application JSON content type, but we want to get the ID, and the way that we get that is we're going to define a params variable. We're going to set it to mux, okay, which is our router, and we can use vars, and then we're going to pass in the request, so the R, and this will get any params. And then we basically need to loop through the books and find the one with the correct ID. So let's say loop through books and find with ID. So we're going to say for, and this is going to look a little weird if you've never used Go. We're going to say for underscore item, and then we're going to use a range. So we're going to say equal to range books, and range is used to basically loop through other data structures. It could be a map, or in this case a slice, or something like that. Remember, books is a slice. So once we do that, we want to do an if statement, and we want to see if the item, so item is basically our iterator. So for each book it goes through, we can access it with item, and we want to check to see if the item ID is equal to the params ID. Okay, so the ID that's in the URL. If it is, okay, so if it is, then we're going to say JSON.newEncoder and pass in our response writer, and then call encode just like we did above in the other one, and we're going to just output that item, the single book. Okay, and then we want to make sure we just return from this, and then we're going to go down below the for loop here and say JSON.newEncoder w.encode, and then we're going to pass in here. Sorry about that banging, man. They're really aggravating me. And then we're going to say ampersand book, and then some curly braces. All right, so this should return just a single book. So let's try it. We'll save it, and we'll go to our Postman. Actually, first of all, we're going to restart the server. So Control C, and then we'll run go build and our REST API again. And then let's make a request, a GET request to API books/1 and send. And there we go, we get our single book. If we do 2 and send, we get book 2. All right, so that's all set. Now we want to work on creating a new book. So we're going to grab this again, application JSON, and we're going to go under that and create a variable called book. Set it to the book struct, and then we're going to just set an underscore equal to JSON.newDecoder. Oops, not encoder, new decoder. And in here we're going to pass in the body, so we can get that from the request.body, and then we want to do .decode and then pass in our ampersand book like that. Okay, now what we want to do is we need to create an ID for our new book. So we're going to say book.id, and this is where we're going to use both of the math rand that I brought in, which actually is gone. The reason it's gone is because the tools that are built in with the Go extension, if you're not using the packages you import, then they disappear, which I really don't like. So we're going to make sure we bring in math rand, and also the other one was strconv, so string converter. All right, so we want those, and then we'll go back down here, and we're going to set the ID equal to rand, and then what we can do to generate an integer is we can say int n, and we want to generate an integer between 1 and 10. What are we going to do? 10 billion, 10 million. So we'll do 10, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like that. Now this needs to be a string, so we're going to wrap this in the strconv dot, and then that has a method called itoa. So this will convert an integer to a string. So we make sure we want to wrap it in that. So that'll create an ID. Now this is a mock ID. This is not, I'm just going to say not safe. This isn't something you'd use in production because it could generate the same ID. I mean, it's a a very slim chance, but it could, and it's not something you'd want to do in production. But this is just for example. So now what we're going to do is say books, talking about our global books variable right here. And we want to set this equal to append because we want to add to it. So we want to add on to books. We want to add our single book. Okay. And then we simply want to do this once again. Okay, because we're just going to output that single book, except this should just be book. So what should happen is it should add the book, and there's no database. It's just going to be adding it basically to memory, and then it'll give us a response of that new book that we create. So let's try it. We'll save it, and we'll go down and restart this. Let's see, r.body undefined. Why is that? This should actually be an uppercase B. All right, so let's open up Postman, and now what we're going to do is make a post request. Actually, I'll open up a new tab here. So we'll make a post request to localhost port 8000 /API/books, and then we're going to go to headers, and we want to add the content type of application/JSON. And then let's go to body. I'm going to choose raw, and then we're going to make a request. So we're going to put in our curly braces, and this is JSON, so the keys and the values need to have double quotes. So we want an ISBN. So for that, I'll just put whatever, and we want a title. I'll say book 3, and let's see what else. the author. Now, let's see, the author is actually going to be its own object. So we're going to put some curly braces, and we'll say first name. And let's just say, I don't know, Carol, and then last name. And we'll say Williams. Alright, so hopefully this works. Let's go ahead and send. And there we go. We get a 200 response back with the new book. And it's still going to be in memory. So if I go back and I go make a GET request to API/books, there it is. There's our new book right there, Carol Williams, book 3. Alright, so that's good. Now we're going to do the delete before we do the update. Alright, so for the delete, let's see, we're going to set the content type. And then what we'll do is get the parameters. Okay, again, we need to make sure we get the ID. So we're going to say params equals, we're going to use the mux router, call vars, and pass in our request. And then we're going to do a loop here again. So we're going to say for index item, and we're going to use a range to loop through the books, and then we need to check for the ID. So if item.id is equal to the params ID, and you can see a lot of this is very similar to what we would do in other languages when dealing with REST APIs. But what we want to do is say books equals append, and then we're going to pass in books, and we want the index, so we're going to do colon index, and then we want another parameter of books, and then we want to do index plus 1 colon, and then we want to do 3 dots like that, and then break out of this loop like that. Okay, and then just respond with this. So we'll go outside of the loop, and we want to pass in books. So what's going to happen is it's going to delete this particular book, and then just give us a response of all the books. So this here is kind of like a slice, doing a slice in JavaScript if you were to loop through an array and then slice it out. Alright, I know it's kind of a weird looking syntax, and I don't really fully understand it, but this will get rid of the book. Okay, and I just realized I put this in the wrong function. This should actually be in the delete. Alright, so let's try that out. So we're going to go down here and we're going to restart. Syntax error. So this line here, let's see what I do wrong. Append books, colon index, books, index plus 1. Dot dot dot. Oh, I forgot my curly braces. So this needs to go like that. There we go. Alright, so let's try that. Okay, so that's running. Now let's go to Postman. And let's do a delete. And let's delete our new one. Actually, that's not going to be there anymore because we restarted the server. You'll see if I do a get, we just have 1 and 2. So let's do a delete. So API books /1 and send. And there we go. So now if I just do a get request to books, let's see what we get. And we just have the 2 because we deleted the first one. Alright, so one more function to do, and that's the update. Now the update is basically going to be a combination of what we did in delete and what we did in create. So I'm going to copy everything we did in delete and put that in update. And what we want to do is inside the for, we're going to check for the ID, and then we're going to get rid of basically going to slice it out and then add a new one. So we'll slice it out, we'll get rid of the break, and then I'm going to copy this from create book. So we'll copy that and we'll put that right in here. I don't know if this is the best way to do it, but this is the way that I figured out. So, and then we just want to return. All right, so that should update hopefully. Let's try it out. Okay, so we'll go back to Postman, and I'll open up a new tab for this one. This is going to be a put request, and we're going to do HTTP. I'm going to do API books / let's do 2. We'll update 2, and then we're going to go to headers. Content type will be application JSON, and then we're going to go to body raw, and let's put in here, let's see, let's say ISBN. We'll change that to sevens, a bunch of 7s. We'll change the title. Let's just change it to updated title. And then what do we have? Author. So this will be first name. Say Jeff. Last name Thompson. All right, so let's see. Oh, I forgot my comma here. So hopefully this works. We're making a put request to API book /2. Let's send it in. And if we look down here, all right, so I messed up something. The ID I still have set to a random ID, which I don't want. Where is it? Right here. Nope. Where is it? Right here. I don't want it set to a random ID. I want it set to the ID of the params. So I'll just grab this and replace this like that. And then let's restart. And if you guys have a better way of doing this, please let me know. That's fine. Let's see. So we're gonna let's just rerun this. And there we go. So now you can see the ID is still 2. So we updated this same one. And we have updated title, Jeff Thompson. If I were to now make a GET request to books, you can see ID 2, updated title, and Jeff Thompson. So we now have a complete CRUD RESTful API. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I know it was a little long, but like I said, I will think about doing a part 2 where we can actually implement a database and then maybe even adding a front end onto it. Okay, but I just wanted to kind of introduce you guys to the Go language if you've never used it, and show you how to use HTTP as well as the MUX router to create an easy RESTful API. All right, so thanks for watching, guys. Please like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you're not, and I will see you next time. Hey guys, I just want to mention our sponsor, GPD Host. So if you're looking for affordable, fast, and quality cPanel hosting, look no further. They offer many types of packages that include a free domain name, free SSL certificate, a website builder, and more. All hosting plans are completely managed and easy to work with. You also get automatic weekly backups. So whether you have a website to transfer or you're building it from scratch, GPD Host is a high-quality solution. To learn more, visit gpdhost.com or click the link in the description below.